There are rich teams and there are poor teams. Then there's 50 feet of crap. And then there's us. We got to think differently.
In 1998, many American League teams' payrolls were soaring. As seen in Moneyball, new Oakland A's GM Billy Beane didn't have that luxury. He was forced to get creative.
This better work. I'm just kidding you.
You back him into a corner, he'll find a way out. And he was backed into a corner with his payroll, and he was just looking for a way to win.
How are these guys going to survive when they have X amount of money and their competitors have 10 times that amount of money? What these guys decided was, we got to look for new knowledge, we got to question everything. They found great inefficiencies in the way they were valuing players.
Beane had to find undervalued players. He looked beyond traditional metrics like batting average and RBIs and instead relied on often overlooked statistics like on-base percentage and slugging percentage, numbers that were actually better indicators of a player's ability to create runs.
We were really trying to rob some of the things that were going on Wall Street and trying to apply them because, you know, finding value is ultimately what they were trying to do on Wall Street and we were trying to do in baseball.
They found that defense was overvalued and offense was undervalued, and guys that got on base in unspectacular ways, they could buy for a fraction of the cost.
He drafted different than everybody else, got rid of good guys before they made big paydays. He was kind of that pioneer.
And if someone was coming along and trying to, out of necessity, innovate in this place, I thought, well, that's a great story. Because if you can do it here, you can do it anywhere.
Despite consistently having one of the lower payrolls in the league, the A's would go on to win 4 division titles, and the Moneyball phenomenon was on its way to transforming not only baseball, but the world beyond.
All right, welcome to Lesson 1, Section 2.1 in your workbook, Data Analysis with Graphs. Before we get into talking about content of today's lesson, I want to talk about that video clip you just saw from the movie Moneyball. If you haven't seen Moneyball, it's a great video starring Brad Pitt. It talks about baseball, and the whole point is that stats are everywhere. Doesn't matter where you look, statistics are out there, and this course, this unit, deals with how we can organize, how we can analyze, interpret, present all the different stats that do exist in the world today. If you look at the web, there's tons of examples. This is a sports website that focuses and specializes in data management, visualization, analysis, all of the things we've talked about. You can go to the Major League website, speaking of baseball, and you can find all kinds of stats for players today, players in the past, and Major League Baseball does a great job allowing people to sort the data to make sense of it, because that's what it's all about. Here's some stock market data from the Wall Street Journal. So you can see there's some numbers, some percentages, some graphs, a lot of information that if you don't know what it is going to totally confuse you. And it's in essence its own separate language. You can look at government websites. This is data from the Climate Service in Canada. This is for July 2nd, 2012 for Calgary International Airport in Alberta. And a lot of different numbers, but they allow you to put it into graphical representations that make more sense. And that's what it's all about. And recently, we will talk about this a little bit later, is Google has launched its public data service, and phenomenal job displaying data in a variety of different ways, but we'll get to that. So let's start with what the two types of data are. There's really two main types, and this is going to help us understand the data as we go through the course. So there's numerical or quantitative data, or there's categorical or qualitative data. And let me explain. If you want to talk about numerical data, we've got two choices. We've got discrete, we've got continuous. If you have discrete data, it just means that there are only certain values that are possible. So for example, number of family members. You can't have 3.5 family members. It's 1, 2, 3, 4 whole numbers. Grades is another good example. You'll see here in this graph, we've got grade A, B, C, D, and F. And when we represent it with a bar graph, the space in between tells us that it is specific data and we cannot go between A and B. That's the idea. On the other hand, if we look at continuous data, here's an example of a histogram with frequency on the y-axis, age on the x-axis. We can see that there is possibility to spread or to melt between the different bars. So for example, somebody can be 20, but they can also be 20 in 1 hour. Or they can be 20, 1 hour, 36 minutes, 42 seconds. The range doesn't stop. At no point do we get to 80, this is a bad example maybe, and jump over to 90. This data set just wouldn't have had anyone in the age range of 80 to 90. Height of a person is another good example. You don't grow to 4 feet tall and then jump to 5 feet tall. There is height in between. Categorical data can be further subdivided into nominal and ordinal. If you're looking at nominal data, your results can be written in any order. So for example, students, politicians, executives, and athletes. It wouldn't matter which order we put these 4 categories or occupations in, but if you look at ordinal data, it does. So in this case, F, D, C, B, A, it makes sense to go from worst to least. If you think of survey results, so if you have a survey result that is least favorable to most favorable, it would make sense to leave it in that order as opposed to switching it all around. The other thing that I forgot to mention is in nominal data, if you have more than 2 choices, it's called non-binary. If you have only 2 choices, so let's say male and female, it's binary. You computer geeks will know this, 0 and 1. So here's how it all breaks down. We've got the data at the top, which is just any data that's out there, and we can break it down into numerical data or into categorical data. Those 2 categories can further be subdivided into discrete data or into continuous data. Categorical data can be nominal data or it can be ordinal data. That may confuse you, and that's okay, because the real question is, what do we do with it now? When we go through this course, we're going to look at taking data and making sense of it, understanding it and presenting it in a way that people can understand. And a lot of the time we're going to use Google spreadsheets. Excel is another option, but I like Google spreadsheets because not only is it accessible everywhere, it's web-based, but you can share it. So if we can do some group projects, we can share it with each other, you can share it with me, and I think it's a little bit more user-friendly and intuitive if you have never used spreadsheet technology before. If you haven't, don't worry, you'll become an expert. If you've got some experience with spreadsheets, I'd ask that you help your classmates and we can make this work. Alright, that's the lesson for today. Check out the next couple videos and we'll walk through some spreadsheet information and we'll create some histograms together.